Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, there's no Chris. Yeah, it's going to be one of those kind of shows where the sharpest guest host in the world takes over because that's what you do in these types of situations. All jokes aside, so tonight we're just going to talk about a few little things, some nerdy stuff. We're going to dip into what's going on with the whole Russia investigation and how much of a mess that's become. Going to briefly talk about Roy Moore, and we're going to nerd out a little bit because we're nerds here. So sit back, enjoy, and yeah, Brushfire Mind live and live. Okay, so before we get into the serious stuff, we've got to nerd out a little bit because, like I said, we're nerds. The Last Jedi came out this week, and yeah, it's good. It's good. It's not perfect. It's got some pacing issues. It's about 2.5 hours long. It could have just been a 2 hour movie and would have been very satisfying. And it's weird because it's got some of the best Star Wars stuff ever captured on film. And yet, it's also got some moments that almost feel like they were pulled out of the original prequel trilogy. That not the original prequel trilogy, but the prequel trilogy, and dropped into the movie. However, go see it. It's a good movie, and it's the kind of movie where you wouldn't even have to be a Star Wars fan to get into this kind of movie. There's real character stuff that happens here, and please believe that I was all the way nerdy with it. Oh yeah, Cameron's got bow ties all over the place. Yep. So yeah, go see it. It's fun. It's Star Wars, and yeah, it's amazing. So, moving on to the serious stuff. First thing we want to do, address the whole Roy Moore situation. And at the risk of making a bad pun, but no more of Roy Moore. This crazy dipshit showed up to the polling place on horseback to vote for himself. And I guess I kind of get it. Sort of. But I mean, really, that's a large part of the reason why he lost. Is I mean, he's just weird. I mean, he is, and not getting into all of the stuff about whether or not the sexual allegations are true or false or whatever. Um, Doug Jones beat him with about 49.5% of the vote. Roy Moore got about 48.5% of the vote. Alabama is a plurality state, which means whoever gets the most votes wins. You don't have to have a majority to win in Alabama. Roy Moore is talking about doing a recount and all this other kind of stuff. Just seriously, please don't let this one go. Let this one die. It's it's sad. Okay, the whole situation is sad, but I guarantee you, when Doug Jones comes up for re-election in 2020, I believe that it is, a Republican will take that seat back. It will happen. Roy Moore, go away. You're weird. You do stuff like go to the polling place on horseback, and then you wonder why people don't take you seriously and think you're a clown. So, yeah. And if I could, just for a moment, I'm not normally one to agree with conventional wisdom in my own opinions as far as what the elites in Washington and or the cable news networks say. But in this case, I actually think Roy Moore losing could end up being one of those blessing in disguise type of situations. So yeah, no, we're not doing anything like that with a bow tie, people. But I love you for noticing. I really do. Anyhow, it's going to end up being a blessing in disguise type of situation because every single Republican that ran was going to get tied to Roy Moore. And while it does seem to be the Democrats that are really, really, really good at all of the sexual impropriety stuff. Um, Anytime it happens with a Republican, it's broadcast, it's all over the place. And Roy Moore not being there while losing a vote in the Senate normally would be bad. But since Congress and the Senate can't seem to get a damn thing done anyway, have we repealed Obamacare? No. Have we started building the wall? No. Have we moved really on any of Trump's agenda? No. In fact, the whole thing with, oh no, we're going to be down, we're going to be missing a Republican vote for the tax plan. Yeah, let's see if that tax plan actually happens on this side of 2018. I'm not personally holding out hope for it. And just on that tax plan, I've said before and I'll say it again, if repealing the individual mandate is part of that package, then I'm on board with it. The vote could be over making a ham sandwich the new mascot of our country. And as long as it repealed the individual mandate in Obamacare, I would be okay with it. I would. Because, hey, Lucas, glad you're here. Good to see you. But all this stuff with Roy Moore, honestly, I don't even think it makes that big of a difference because so many of the establishment Republicans are either actively or subversively opposing Trump at every turn. I mean, losing a vote in the Senate, for what? They're not trying to get any of his agenda done. So, yeah. Hey, and we're back. Okay, thanks everybody. We had some technical difficulties. I've never done this all by myself before, so had to figure out how to fix that right here, right now. And the camera was off, so none of you saw how hard I was working to fix it. So, whoops. I'm sorry. We don't have a whole crew of people running the cameras. There's nobody back there. It's just monitors behind the camera that told me something was wrong. Appreciate everybody in the text thread letting me know. Anyhow, so yeah, we were right in the middle of Roy Moore, but that guy's so weird, and it's been all beat to death, and he lost, and the Senate and everything. So we're just gonna move on and keep right on rolling. The other thing that we really have to get into is where the whole Trump Muh-Russia thing is at. And to do that, we're going to have to take a couple of steps back. And we're actually going to have to talk about the Hillary Clinton email scandal. There's a couple of names that you need to know. It's Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Now, Peter Strzok was part of the committee that investigated the whole thing with Hillary's emails. In fact, when Comey came out and did his infamous press briefing, Comey was actually going to be a lot more critical of Hillary in the press briefing. And it was Strzok that softened the tone of what Troop is Steve? No, I don't think so. But it was Strzok that actually softened Comey's statements, because in Comey's original statements, he was going to go as far as to say that Hillary was negligent. And oops, we can't actually say that Hillary's negligent, because it turns out that being negligent with classified information is a crime. Go figure. And where does Lisa Page fit into this? Well, she's also mixed up in this whole mess, has connections with Fusion GPS and the Steele document and all of this other kind of stuff. From now on, she is Steve. That's what we call her. That's you have your instructions. Troop is Steve. Period. End of sentence. Now, Strzok's a big Hillary supporter, and Lisa Page is a big Hillary supporter, and oh yeah, the two of them were having an affair. She was his, for lack of a better term, mistress. And some text messages and other communications between them have come out, and it is very, very clear that they had a bias against Trump before the election results were known. See, and go and look all this stuff up for yourself, because it kind of makes you sick, and it's fascinating all at the same time. But in short, they did not think that Trump could win. They thought that Hillary, being Hillary, was bulletproof and was going to pull it out. And of course, that's not at all what happened. We know what happened. So what this means is the whole thing with the Steele document, the Golden Showers dossier, as it were. It now appears as though it was known from the beginning that this thing was a fake, a forgery. It was Russian propaganda. And it also appears that the Steele document, or the Golden Showers dossier, is what was the basis for the Russia investigation. An investigation that Strzok also worked on and was demoted from a few months ago, and no reason for the demotion has been given. Now, what this means is that the FBI, and God knows who else in the intelligence community, took a piece of evidence that they knew wasn't actual evidence, that they knew was false, and they used it to launch all these investigations from Trump. And at the same time, these are all the same people that exonerated Hillary because, you know, they couldn't prove her intent, which I don't. That part has always blown my mind. And so where does this land us? Well, this lands us with people like Michael Flynn being charged with crimes. Now, Michael Flynn has been charged with process crimes. And what that means is, as far as the original thing that he was being investigated for, potentially colluding with Russia to somehow steal the election from Hillary and give it to Trump, now he hasn't been charged with any crime related to that. Instead, he's been charged with crimes for lying to the FBI over the course of the investigation. Which, look, don't lie to the FBI. And I get that, and I am on board with that. But he would not have been charged with any of these crimes if there was no Russia investigation. And there would be no Russia investigation if Stroke and Page weren't having an affair and they hadn't used the Steele dossier to launch a falsified investigation. It's actually extremely criminal and really scary because you go against the establishment and then what happens to you? Well, somebody from some outfit somewhere puts together a 38-page report that says that you'd like to have sex with prostitutes and get them to pee on beds in Russia. And suddenly now you're a collaborator with Putin and you steal the election from Hillary and all of these other terrible, terrible things. But none of it would happen. The same thing with Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort has also been charged with crimes in relationship to this whole thing. But his crimes go all the way back to 2006, which means there was no Trump candidacy. There was no collusion. There is an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's one of my favorite episodes, and it's called The Drumhead, and we've referenced it before. We've even played a clip of the show, of that episode on this show before. If you have Netflix, you should go back and watch it because it shows you very, very well a universe where there can be a crime and there can be a criminal, but those two things aren't actually interconnected at all. And when you give special counsels broad latitudinal power to investigate whatever they want for whatever reason, Lindsay, that is not things that we need to know. Okay, that's just, that's, wow. I don't know that I'd ever admit that in public if I were you. Anyhow, these people are being charged with crimes that they would not otherwise have been charged with were they not, if this investigation was not happening. Now, the thing is, a couple of the people involved were actually having an affair with one another. And how many of us could have our entire history crawled through and would come up clean as a whistle? I'd say that 99% of us, myself included, okay, I'm not holier than thou. If every single teeny tiny detail of my life was laid bare, I mean, there would be something good that would come out. Or rather something not good that would come out. There'd be things that I would look like a jerk, a creep, an asshole, even a criminal. So now Trump is doing something very interesting with all of this information, though. He's refusing to fire Mueller, which kind of blows my mind. At this point, as far as I'm concerned, from the outside looking in, I was always suspicious of the whole Muh-Russia thing. But now that it's come out that these people were Hillary supporters, they were having an affair, Lisa Page is tied to Fusion GPS, it looks like they knew that the whole Golden Showers dossier was fake from the beginning. That's, honestly, it goes back to that age-old question, that Roman proverb, who watches the watchman? Because in this case, it's the watchmen that appear to have committed all of the crimes. And yes, I have no doubt that Paul Manafort did some funny stuff with his banking records and whatever, and that whatever they're accusing him of doing all the way back in 2006, he probably did. And yes, Flynn lied to the FBI, and he probably did it. And this is my guess, did it out of loyalty to Trump, not because there was anything with merit to the whole Russia investigation, but, and this is another thing that we talked about on this show before, that Flynn might be one of those double agents. That's a necessary evil. And I'm just not responding to any of those comments. That whole text thread can die right there. That actually made me lose my train of thought. Thank you very much. So Trump, Flynn, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think we're back. I think. Are we back? We're not back. No. But I would invite everybody watching, if you're not savvy on all this kind of stuff, you should look up Peter Strzok, which is kind of tough because all the information about him was recently removed from the FBI's website, which, man, that's not weird or suspicious at all. I am keeping it together. I have it all together. But thanks, buddy. We love you. We miss you. Have fun in Washington. But I would invite everybody to, A, go watch the Star Trek episode because, I mean, yeah, we're nerds, but it gives you a good representation of how these sorts of investigations steamroll people that were never in the path of the original investigation, and they get in trouble for things that were never part of the scope of the original investigation. Because I'll tell you where I think this is all leading. We're never going to have Trump or Trump Jr. or Ivanka or anybody in Trump's immediate circle charged with what'll basically be treason. Because that's what it would be if you are providing aid and comfort to a hostile actor. That's treason. I mean, that's what that is. And nobody's ever going to be charged with anything like that. Instead, what's going to happen here is these process crimes are going to mount up. We're going to have people like Flynn, who I think is probably actually really a patriot at heart. And you're going to continue to have their lives ruined, their reputations ruined. Part of the reason why Flynn pled guilty is because his entire family is broke now. Like, they were literally out of money. The stress that his wife and his children were under. And, I mean, look, I like to think of myself as somebody that has firm morals that can't be bent or broken. But if you start threatening my kids, I might be willing to compromise on a whole lot of things that I just would not otherwise compromise on. So what's going to happen here is these people are going to continue to get ruined and continue to get ruined and continue to get ruined. This is leading toward impeachment. I guarantee you it is in everybody's mind that if the Democrats can take control of the Senate, which they might have a legit shot at, they think they can take back the House, which, again, they might have a legit shot at. And that would be more the fault of the Republicans than anything that the Democrats did right. But they will use all of this stuff that is coming out to impeach Donald Trump. So, yeah, go look that all up. Please do. Read the text between Strzok and Page and realize that these are the people that were part of the driving force behind not only Hillary being exonerated in the email situation, but the driving force behind the ongoing investigation into Trump that has, at this point, gone on for almost a year, has cost millions of dollars. And I mean, and I just want to ask, do you think there's anybody out there right now, if I gave you a year and millions of dollars and the full network of the FBI, you think you could find dirt on people? I bet I could. Oh, thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. I hate it that that's about it. We're only going to do about a 30-minute show tonight. But I said I would keep it short and sweet. So go see The Last Jedi. Go Google Strzok. Go watch The Drumhead, Star Trek The Next Generation. And remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the night. But if you set a man on fire, you'll keep him warm for the rest of his life. Good night, Godspeed, and Merry Christmas. Thank you.